Today's issues straight from the source.
Put back on the next.
Just say unbanned.
Unbanned.
Just search AFA Streaming or visit streaming.afa.net to sign up. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today is, today is December the 11th, 2023. Thank you for listening to AFR Monday, December the 11th. Good morning, Ed Vitagliano.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Fred Jackson.
Good morning. 2 weeks to Christmas Day.
Is that what it is? Christmas Day is on a what?
On a Monday.
On a Monday.
Yeah.
And my wife and I did some Christmas shopping on Saturday.
I bet you did.
No, I promise
Yeah.
we did, and I regretted every minute of it while I was out there.
Were you spending the money or the time you had to use?
Both. But I was actually talking about the crowds.
Oh, the crowds.
Yeah,
Okay.
the traffic, all that kind of
But
stuff.
you chose to go.
I did. Well, here's the thing, okay? Now, I'm just going to say this because I know my wife's not listening,
Right.
okay? I like to go, like if we have to go to Walmart or if we have to go to Sam's or we have to go somewhere on a Saturday,
Yeah.
I say, let's be there at 7 a.m. Well, my wife's not going to do that. So to make her happy, we didn't leave the house till 9 or 9:30, and by the time it got to lunchtime,
Everybody in America chooses that time to go.
that's exactly right.
Right.
And I try to tell her, but,
So the lines were long.
oh, yeah. And the aisles were crowded, and there was just so much Christmas spirit. I mean, it was a beautiful thing.
And you demonstrated it, right?
No, I tend not to act outwardly. My displeasure inside was at full volume.
Well,
Really? You two ladies, really? You going to sit in the middle of the aisle talking about your grandkids?
move it.
Yes.
You were like Sergeant Carter, huh?
That's right. That's right.
That's
Move
why we
that
call
pile.
That's why we call him Ed the Grinch.
That's right.
Oh man. Well, we hope you've got your Christmas shopping done or have plans to have it done soon because we are bearing down on 2 weeks from yesterday, right? Christmas Day.
No, 2 weeks from today.
From today,
Right.
Okay, yes, 2 weeks from today. All right, I was watching for a lot of the country, Saturday was a bad weather day for a lot of the country. I started, Fred, I flipped over to the Weather Channel about 5 o'clock, I guess, on Saturday afternoon, local time, Central Time.
Right.
And they were tracking on the Weather Channel they said a big tornado that was on the ground in the North Nashville area.
Right.
And I watched that for about an hour or an hour and a half or so as they kept saying this thing is on the ground, and then they kept tracking where it was going. Again, north of Nashville, and it tracked northeast. So
Yeah.
now we know.
Clarksville got hit really hard. If you Interstate 24 out of Nashville heading northwest on 24, Clarksville's right up there. A lot of folks that are based at Fort Campbell, the big Army base there. My son-in-law was based there back several years ago. And that community got hit very hard. 6 people were killed, and many, many dozens more were injured. This morning, they were reporting up to 700 buildings were either destroyed or heavily damaged. I watched a video being taken by a lady as this was approaching Clarksville, and she's talking to a family member off the side, and she's got her telephone up, her cell phone, taking this thing. And I'm saying, if it was me, I'd be running at this point because it just kept coming towards them. And the last that we see, obviously, they put the phone down and they run somewhere. This thing was a monster. And you could start to see it picking up the debris, and that debris just increased more and more. It was level 3, I think it was.
It sat on the ground a long time.
30 minutes, did someone say? Or close to 30 minutes?
So no wonder so many buildings were damaged.
Oh, the pictures, Ed and I were just before we went on the air watching some of the pictures out of Clarksville this morning. It's just, I have not been through a tornado. I've been close to where a tornado goes through.
Right.
But it happens so quickly, and the level of damage is just unbelievable. What it does to buildings, what it does to vehicles, it's just like a bomb goes off.
Well, it is that time of the year when these kind of bad weather events happen. My wife and I were talking about about Nashville. Nashville got hit as well. I saw a video of a huge explosion, fireball in Nashville as the tornado hit something. But my wife and I were talking about, at that time we knew that 6 people had died. We didn't know if it was Nashville and Clarksville combined. But we were talking about how a lot of times these tornadoes hit and nobody dies. And so I think part of the reason for that is the increasingly scientific approach that a lot of local weather channels are taking, as well as the national channels. But I know here in the Tupelo area, where our flagship station is for our network, our local stations do a really good job of trying to give people as much warning as possible. But sometimes, like with Clarksville, it hits so quickly that there really is not much room for dodging it.
Well, we also have the warnings that come over your cell phone now.
Right.
Yes.
They'll like I have the Weather Channel app, but I'm not sure the National Weather Service. They probably have the ability to send out alerts on all cell phone devices, right?
Right.
I'm thinking if it's a tornado warning, for example. Yes. But another thing is, yes, the advance notice of bad weather, they can tell you 3 or 4 days in advance. The computer models and so forth.
Right.
Okay, this is where the really bad weather is going to be, and they get it within a 100-mile radius usually. But even so, when you have a densely populated area like Nashville and the surrounding area, you're not going to be, and you have a Category 3. Do they call it Cat 3 or that's a hurricane? F3 is what they call a tornado. You're not going to be able to avoid some deaths and some injuries because that's just too strong a tornado, and everybody can't get out of the way.
And like you said, I mean, if it stays on the ground for that length of time,
I saw the video like you guys did of all this the explosions going on, and I'm thinking those must be transformers that are blowing up, or electrical power plants, or maybe a gas. What if it hits a gas not a gasoline station, but you know what I'm saying,
like butane or
propane, that kind of thing. It explodes, but it was like a Christmas tree lights watching this thing. Anyway, so that's sad to see, but you're right, Ed. A lot of times in December, you're still getting the warm weather colliding with the cold weather, causing the tornadoes. Really, in the South and the Midwest, but particularly the South and the Southeast, in the winter, because it doesn't get frigidly cold normally, you have tornadoes can strike anywhere from December to May usually. It's usually
because you can't get, like here it was 70-something degrees. It was Saturday.
Yeah.
So that's how I guess that hot air rising and the winds it causes.
No, you go ahead and explain it to us. We're interested.
No, it's
meteorologist Ed here.
It is. It's the heat.
Yeah, 70 degrees
with cold air.
70 degrees on Saturday. This is across a lot of the South, and then dropping to 28 overnight last night. So you got this clash of weather systems. All right, so we will move on to our next story, Fred.
Well, we've known for a long time that university campuses across this country have been the scene of anti-Semitism. We have done stories for a number of years now, and there'll be incidents. University campuses, universities taking the lead in the so-called BDS movement, the boycott, divest, sanction against Israel. So those stories have been going on for a long time. But it has taken this horrific, tragic Hamas-Israel war for us to see really what's been going on in these campuses. Because within 48 hours after the war broke out on October the 7th, that horrific massacre in Israel, we had pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protests on our campuses, on the streets of America. And people were scratching their head, wait a minute, it's just 2 days ago that we had this massacre in Israel, and you're out there with your Palestinian flags, and you had people testifying on camera that it was all it was fake, that Israel had started all of this. And we're wondering, where does this come from? And so we now understand more and more what's been going on for years on these campuses is this anti-Israel. It is this critical race theory thinking that Israel is an oppressor. That's why you're seeing, they're called occupiers, and that the Palestinians are the oppressed. And they don't seem to care what Hamas did. We now know there's videos out there, just horrific what they did to more than 1,200 Jewish men, women, and children. But all of this has prompted an investigation is underway. And late last week, there was a House Education hearing. And in this hearing, we had 3 leaders, presidents of Harvard, MIT, and University of Pennsylvania. Those presidents were, I would say, called on the mat. What has happened? What is going on in your campus? You know anti-Semitism is there. And people were shocked to hear the response of these 3 presidents saying, well, basically, we have First Amendment rights. We practice that on our campuses. And unless there's somebody injured, we let people say whatever they want. And people stood back and said, wait a minute. You're telling me if there was somebody on campus saying terrible things about black students, you would tolerate that? Everybody knows that wouldn't happen. One of the Republicans who sits on the House Education Committee is Congressman Jim Banks of Indiana. And I want you to hear a little bit of what he had to say and the question last week as part of this hearing, cut number 7.
Why did Penn let Professor Ahmad Amala off the hook, who led hundreds of students in chanting, "There's only one solution, Intifada revolution"? Why does that professor still have a job at your university?
Representative, our approach to speech is, as I identified, it follows and is guided by the United States Constitution, which allows for robust perspectives.
Robust perspectives. Well, Jim Banks was interviewed on Fox and Friends this morning, and that response has gotten these 3 presidents in trouble. Cut number 6.
McGill didn't just resign. She's just going to the law school to teach. And the reason that she left is because she lost a $100 million donation to the university. So hopefully MIT and Harvard hear from their donors as well. I mean, this is all about money for them. And that's why the House Education Committee last week, under Dr. Fox, our chair's leadership, launched a further investigation into these schools. We're going to subpoena their records, their emails, any documents, anything that proves that these universities aren't creating a safe environment for their Jewish students. And if they aren't, then we're going to pull their federal funding. That's the bottom line. If it's about the money to get these universities to do the right thing, then they could not just lose major donations, but lose the federal funding that makes these universities work. That's the next big step.
As Congressman Banks noted there on Saturday, the University of Pennsylvania president, Liz McGill, she stepped down. She keeps her job at the law school, with tenure, but she stepped down. Now there are calls for the president at Claudine Gay at Harvard University to do the same thing. Likewise at MIT, the president there. They want these leaders who tried to defend people with saying horrible things about Jews on their campuses. They tried to defend that, but now, money talks, money walks. That's what's happening. You heard there in that from Congressman Banks, a donor of $100 million, the University of Pennsylvania, saying, I'm taking my money out of there because of what's going on there. So we have some movement finally on this anti-Semitism that has been allowed and promoted on these campuses, and these university presidents have done nothing about it.
I think it's outrageous that these presidents are, I call it, hiding behind the First Amendment. Listen, I'm a huge First Amendment supporter, but for these university presidents to say this is all about the First Amendment is garbage. I don't believe them. You know why? Because how many times have we heard about conservative speakers being invited by a conservative group and then the college or the university saying, no, we're going to have to cancel it because protests will make this unsafe? How many times have we heard stories about conservative speakers who did make it to the campus to speak, and then they are shouted down by protesters so that the First Amendment for conservatives is obliterated? How many times have we heard stories about people like Riley Gaines, who went to speak at a university campus? She had to leave along with her supporters. She had to go basically hide in a room after being slugged by protesters. How many times have we heard stories about pro-life people with a display having the table turned over or having the signs that they had posted torn up? How many times have we heard recently about Jewish students saying, I was told not to go out into public with apparel that identifies me as Jewish? For these university presidents to say, oh, we're firm believers in the First Amendment. How many stories have we heard about students who are told by their professors, if you supported Trump, you're not welcome in my class? These colleges and universities have become indoctrination centers, and now that some of those that have been indoctrinated are getting out of hand and are threatening physical violence or are saying horrifying things, like you said, Fred, on these college campuses, now that these presidents are getting in hot water, they want to say First Amendment. Well, you know what? If you really believed in the First Amendment, we wouldn't have arrived at this point on our campuses. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to see. This is the liberals fighting liberals. A lot of this is because if you're making multi-million-dollar donations to Harvard, you're a liberal, okay, right, already. So our other universities, University of Pennsylvania, or a lot of these Ivy League schools where we've seen these protests in favor of Hamas, then what you got is liberal Jews making big donations, and now they're appalled at what's going on the college campuses because the anti-Semitism is so blatant, and now they're pulling back and saying we're not going to give our millions of dollars to these schools that promote anti-Semitism, which I want to say, duh.
Right.
Have you not been paying attention at all to the culture wars for the last 25, 30 years? These same people that hate America, they hate Israel.
Yes.
Right.
And by extension, they hate Jews, just like they hate Christians.
Yes.
Right. These people, these are the people, and now they're calling us, they would call Christians or Jews or white people colonizers.
Yes.
You're of European descent. And they view them the same way. They view the Jews in Israel the same way. And so they've been, I'm just saying, you haven't been paying attention. If you're a liberal Jew and you now shocked that that anti-Semitism is being fostered at the same colleges and universities that you fund.
Yeah. We mentioned those three high-profile universities, but same thing has been happening at George Washington University. A Jewish student there, Sabrina Sofer, was on Fox this morning. Listen to as she describes what's been going on that campus. Cut number 8.
We've seen that there's foreign money coming in that are sponsoring academic programming. This particular webinar comes out of one of the academic programs at GW's Elliott School. It's called the Institute of Middle East Studies, and it's actually funded, and it's public on their website, by Qatar Foundation International. And this is not an isolated trend. You know, we've seen it at Georgetown, at Northwestern, and other universities. And, you know, there can be views that can be said, right?
That's right.
But there's no balance here. And unfortunately, IMIS, the Institute of Middle East Studies at GW, has been promoting curriculum like this for quite a long time. I've been to several of their events. The danger that we're seeing is in the classroom, this is the place that we're supposed to get educated, and unfortunately it's turned into indoctrination, and this is truly a violation of educational integrity, and it is morally shameful.
Yeah. Another takeaway is here, you better be careful where you send your kids to college.
Yes.
Because it can change their lives for the worst. And I know that a couple of years ago I had somebody tell me, a fellow church member, and that they had sent their kids to a university, and that university, the kid was one of the leaders in the church youth group.
Yeah,
strong Christian, but got poisoned. The poisoning was starting, and they could tell when the young man would come home from college, and they would talk about things, and he would start saying things that he had heard, especially about university, professors and such, and you could tell that they were having an influence on his thinking.
Yeah.
And he was going more of a pro-socialist. He wasn't an atheist. He wasn't saying, I reject God. He was saying, he was promoting socialistic ideas that he had heard, and they were like going, where are you getting this? Why do you believe this? Anyway, there are a lot of horror stories worse than that.
And I hope you heard what she had to say. There are seminars at these universities that are paid for by countries like Qatar. They send millions of dollars to American universities, and these seminars are all one-sided. Qatar is where the Hamas leaders are living in luxury.
Right.
Qatar, the government, the regime.
Some people call it Qatar.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's where the Hamas leaders are living.
Right.
They are funding these seminars. The universities know this, but they allow it to continue. And there's only one point of view at these seminars.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to just say something that's probably not too shocking for our listeners. I try to say something shocking periodically. This shouldn't be too shocking.
Okay.
Listen, has been since the beginning of Islam, all right, there has been and continues to be a war against the West, all right? Islam is bent on subjugating the entire world by force if necessary, or by subterfuge if possible. So in countries where Muslims have been in the minority, they take a different tack rather than the coercion you have in places like Saudi Arabia, Iran especially. Yeah. So what we are seeing in the West and what we are seeing in our country is Muslim money, a lot of it from oil profits, Muslim money going to colleges and universities to brainwash our young people to reject the West. I read an article, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, talking about the alliance between red and green, between cultural Marxists and Islam. And you say, what do Marxists and Islam have to do with one another? Well, nothing, except hatred for the West. And now they are allies, and I guess they're going to fight over the scraps if they prevail. But that's what's going on in our colleges and universities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Muslim teaching is very friendly to women's rights.
Right.
And LGBT.
Oh, yeah.
They're very,
big supporters.
Big supporters and promoters.
No.
Said no one ever.
That's what's surprising is when you see women's groups supporting Hamas. And you're going, what? What?
Right.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with coming up in a couple minutes.
「 Got 'em all, 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 It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
I guess you saw it. It was in the papers across the country. Russell Tansey of Oakland, California, filed a suit against God in the amount of $100,000. Tansey filed the suit on behalf of his legal secretary, Betty Penrose, who blamed God for a lightning bolt, which struck and destroyed her home in Phoenix some 9 years earlier. Tansey officially charged God with careless and negligent control of the weather. Well, it was more of a publicity stunt than anything else. We humans sometimes become little balls of ego walking around, and finding a way to get our names before the masses means a lot to us. So some will stoop to anything for the sake of fame. But it sets one to thinking, who will represent the deity at the hearing? And should he lose, who will pay the amount? Will this open up other suits against him? Well, there's a lot of questions which come into our mind concerning the situation. Most of them are of very little importance. I doubt very seriously if the Creator would appear at such a hearing in the expected manner. Judging from past experience, we might as well forget the whole thing. A fellow named Job wanted to argue his case with the Maker, only to learn that it was a great mistake. There's another side to the question that pops into one's mind when he gets to looking at this thing of suits against the Creator, and that is, will the Creator get a chance to file suit against us for messing up his property? It doesn't take one long to make his answer when that possibility opens up. We'd better leave well enough alone, for it's quite evident who will come up on the short end of the deal. Betty Penrose waited 9 years to file her suit against God. I wonder if we have ever paused to consider the patience that the Creator has with us. We've literally been making a mess of his property, destroying his creation, wasting his products for countless thousands of years. And yet he doesn't strike us dead to get what is due him. That's a mystery, an eternal mystery. The patience of the one above us as he sees what we have done and are doing with the things which are his. There's also the possibility that if we are to charge him with the things which we consider bad, he might in return place a charge upon us for the things we call good. That makes one stop pretty quick, for it's quite evident again who will come up short. I don't think I have enough money to repay him for a single day of sunshine, much less countless other gifts which he gives me. It appears that when it comes to suing the Creator, we'd better leave well enough alone. It opens up too many possibilities which could and would leave us flat broke and eternally in debt. And since we have thought about it, I guess we're already that way, in debt to God.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
The LGBT movement isn't new. Since 1968, it's been making its way into the Christian church, and now we're seeing parts of the church starting to affirm the quote-unquote gay Christian lifestyle. How did we get here? In the book Dangerous Affirmation, author M.D. Perkins sheds light on how Christians are being lured away from God's truth and calls us to faithfulness to God's design. You can get the ebook version of Dangerous Affirmation today at resources.afa.net.
In Him, we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of Him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of His will. Ephesians 1:11.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Well, folks, we here at American Family Association, American Family Radio, believe in spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ far and wide. I mean, we do a lot of things here towards that end, and we certainly are engaged politically and culturally. But the things that we do in that regard are motivated by our Christian faith and our biblical worldview. So anything that spreads the gospel, by that we mean good news of Jesus to the world, so that people will be saved. That's what Jesus came for. We're going to celebrate Christmas Day in a couple of weeks. We're celebrating the birth of the Savior of the world. That's what the Bible teaches. That's what the story of Jesus is about. Well, one of the ways that my dad, Don Wildman, who founded this ministry, had to promote the gospel of Christ, this is 20 years ago or so, we had the Christmas button campaign, and we've been doing that for many, many years now. And we have a gentleman in studio with us who drops by annually to talk about this, and that's your brother Jerry Lawson, who's the pastor of the Enon Presbyterian Church in Ackerman, Mississippi, which is about an hour from where we sit. And he drives up to be with us and share with our staff at Devotion and come on the air with us. Jerry, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. It's great to be with you.
How long have you been a pastor?
57 years.
How did you know? You just know every one of those years, huh? They've been a joy?
Well, let me tell you, when you put your candle up on a lampstand, somebody's going to try to blow it out.
Yes. Well, I don't know why I said that. Yes, you're calling to preach the gospel, share the gospel, but I just know you said 57 years, like 57 years. They haven't every board meeting with the church leadership hadn't been wonderful. But hey, we're not here to talk about that. Jerry, we're here to talk about the Christmas button campaign. How long have you been participating with us on this idea?
Your dad started that button campaign in 06. And in 06, I was frustrated at those who were wanting to take Christ out of Christmas.
Yes.
And the Lord identified with your father, and the Lord identified with me. And when I found out about the Christmas buttons, I knew right then that was something the Lord was leading me to get involved in.
Well, folks, here's the website I want you to go to, and then I want Jerry to tell a couple of stories about his experience with the buttons. And many of you listening right now have had the same. You've ordered the buttons, you've used them. They're what they are. They're small little buttons that you put on your shirt or your coat, and then people see them out in public, and it's a witness to people about the reason for the season. And then it also, a lot of people engage. They ask about it, or they want you to give them one. Where can I get one of those buttons? Here's the website you need to go to, and you can order. You've still got time to order them. And if you can't use them this year, you can use them next year. They're not dated in any way. Go to this website, resources.afa.net, resources.afa.net. And they're very inexpensive, resources.afa.net. Go to that website. We've put it up on our Today's Issues Facebook page. You can link there if you want to. So 2006, how many buttons would you say, Jerry, you've distributed?
Only the Lord knows that. It's been thousands and thousands of buttons.
Well, this year, 2,000, I think you said. Did I hear that right this morning?
I've already passed out 2,000 buttons this year.
Let me just, Jerry, just for a moment, but you told some great stories, so we want you to tell
truthful stories.
Truthful stories.
Because I know,
yes.
That's,
yeah, right.
A lot of people grew up with their. That's what my mom's euphemism for lying was.
Don't tell a story.
Don't tell a story. You're telling a story, aren't you, Ted?
I just want to let our listeners know how smart Brother Don was, and this is going to reveal how dumb I can be. Brother Don, I remember he had this idea for these buttons. He came to my office and Rusty Benson's office. He's worked many years on the magazine, and he said, I have an idea for Christmas buttons, and explained the concept, and he said, what do you guys think? And I said, well, honestly, Brother Don, I haven't seen anyone wear a button since the Nixon-Hubert Humphrey election in 1968. Everybody in my junior high school was wearing buttons.
Right.
You started with "I like Ike," and then by the late 60s. And so I said, I don't think anybody would probably wear them. Boy, was I wrong. I think AFA distributed 1 million buttons that year.
Yeah.
After we
got,
yeah, 1 million. And so Brother Don, I've always said Brother Don could see around corners. He just had a sense for how people would act and react in certain circumstances. And he was right on. And here we are 17 years later, and people still asking for these buttons. So would you tell us the story you told this morning about going into the store? You think that's okay to tell?
Store in Starkville.
Yes.
That's what he's talking about here.
Many times when I go into a store, people do ask me, they greet me and say, "Can I help you?" And I like to see people's reaction when I say, "Well, I'd like to do a little bit of shoplifting, and I like to do that by myself." The expression on people's face. And, this lady had told me, she said, "I appreciate an honest crook." And I do too. And so we've come to know each other over the year, and I'll go in and she'll greet me, and then she'll say, "Sir, if I'm going to do shoplifting today, I'd go to the back right corner of the store."
Right.
And I think her, I like it when the manager tells me where to go shoplifting. But here the other week, I went in and greeted her, and then as I was going by service desk, I noticed this lady that I've known over the years. She knows me, and I greeted her, and she asked if she could help me, and I said, "No, I'm going to do a little shoplifting." And she said, "Well, okay." And so I went on past her, but there was a trainee there. And the trainee said, "Do we need to watch him?" And she said, "No, we don't have to worry about him." "Well, how do you know that?" "Well, he's got that Jesus button on." And she made the statement. She said, there's a lot of people that profess Jesus, but they're not possessed by Jesus. And I thought that was an interesting comment. And I would hope that people would not only see a profession and a witness, but they would know that it comes from a genuine heart.
Amen. Amen.
They all have Christmas buttons on down there today.
The Christmas button is red this year. It says, "Jesus, he came for you. Merry Christmas." Again, you can look at it and buy your pack of 10 for $8, and that includes shipping. So go to here's the website, resources.afa.net, resources.afa.net. But what a wonderful way to be a witness for Jesus out in the public as you walk around. And a lot of times you'll get people ask you about the button or ask you to if they can, and then you can hand them one. That's how Jerry has distributed thousands of these buttons over the years.
Because they come in packs of 10.
Yeah.
So if you buy a pack, the object is, I think the impetus of our campaigns over the years have been wear them and share them. Mm-hmm. So you get a pack of 10, your expectation should be, I'm going to give it away when somebody says, and it really is a great way to start a conversation, Jerry, Pastor, because people say, "Oh, I love that button." And then you say, "Oh, well, here, I've got plenty of them. Here's one for you."
Yeah.
And it's a small way to open up a conversation.
And this did start, referencing what Jerry said earlier, this did start because you remember in the middle of about 2000, 2002, 3, 4, 5, there was a genuine attack on the Christmas holiday celebration.
Right.
By the secular left. They couldn't stand it, so they wanted to make everything a generic holidays, happy holidays. Nothing wrong with saying happy holidays, but if you're going to do that to intentionally ignore Christmas,
right,
then that's what you're doing is you're saying, I want to get rid of the Christian holiday.
Right.
Any reference to Jesus.
Yes.
I want to ditch that.
A lot of stores, a lot of corporations would have decorations up, but without a mention of Christmas.
Right. They wanted to make money off Christmas,
right,
but not mention it.
Right.
Huh?
And some people attacked us because we're like Pastor Jerry's saying, you light a candle and put it up on a mantle. Someone wants to blow it up. So we were being attacked for making too much of this issue. It's just one issue. The way we framed it was, no, this is one particular issue, but it is one particular issue in a move to secularize the whole culture. And so we would fight battles over here, over there, and Christmas was one of those where we said, you know what? You want our business? You mentioned Christmas. And a lot of stores backed off. and they started mentioning Christmas. Well, there was a store, I won't mention it because they did change. There was a store that had Christmas trees outside in the parking lot, and they had a sign up for holiday trees. Now, that's just bordering on absurd. They're not holiday trees. No one buys a tree for holiday, to celebrate holiday.
No.
They were Christmas trees.
Right.
But they didn't want to say Christmas.
Right. No, right. But they changed.
Yes, this was back in 2006, 2007.
But they changed. All right. Well, listen, Brother Jerry, anything else you want to share?
Well, Thursday night, we had our parade at Ackerman.
Okay.
And this little boy, 10 years old, sees the button. And he says, "Sir, can I have one of those buttons?" And I had one in my pocket, and I gave it to him, and he immediately pinned it on his T-shirt. And he took off. And it was like the Lord said, "You better go get some more buttons." So I went. And that little kid was like Philip. I mean, every time I turned around, "Do you have a button for him? Do you have a button for him?" And we were able to meet every one of those requests. And all of these little fellas walking around had Christmas buttons on.
Wow. Well,
Just tickled me.
That was a Christmas parade in Ackerman, Mississippi.
That's right.
Thursday night. Well, Jerry, thank you, brother, for helping us spread the word and share the gospel and keep Christmas in the conversation. Appreciate it very much. And thanks for coming by with it to be with us today.
I thank Don, and I thank Jesus for those Christmas buttons and the blessing that I've got out of it over the years.
Amen. It's Jerry Lawson. He's with us annually to talk about our Christmas button campaign, and he's pastor of Enon Presbyterian Church in Ackerman, Mississippi. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio. I'm Tim with Ed and Fred, and you know, that's one of the, I think we were able, AFA and AFR were one of the groups, maybe the leading organization, that we fought back against this secularization of the Christmas season in the sense that eradicating the use of the word Jesus,
right,
or Christmas, and I think we won.
Yeah, listen, I think we may have been the first organization to do that, and we had a naughty and nice list. I mean, we kept at this for years and years. I always got a little bit of a kick. Listen, I'm not trying to toot our own horn. God gives us ideas and gives us the grace to fight these battles. All the glory belongs to God. But I did get a kind of a chuckle out of Bill O'Reilly when he was on Fox News. After we've been doing this for 2 or 3 years, he started defending Christmas, which was a great thing. And we work with anybody over it. But
I was on his show, by the way, about this matter.
Yes, he said that he won the war over Christmas. Now, we didn't post anything or write articles and say, "Bill, you're wrong," because it does take a large group of people to stand up for these things. But AFA was, I think, probably the first to make this a major, I mean, starting in September, even in the summer, when these companies would begin to print their flyers for the coming Christmas season. I know things have changed quite a bit with the internet and with people ordering online, but we learned that if we started talking to them about why is there no Christmas isn't mentioned on your flyer, Walmart, for example, or Lowe's, they would say, well, these are printed up in the summer. So we started hitting them in the summer and telling them, if you do not mention Christmas in these flyers that you're producing now, you're going on the naughty list. It's kind of a funny way of putting it, but they didn't want, Christmas is so important for their bottom line. They did not want people not shopping at their stores because we'd put them on the list.
People don't holiday shop.
Right.
Who goes, "I'm going holiday shopping"?
It's absurd.
Huh? Nobody does that.
Right.
The kids come down on Christmas Day morning and go, it's holiday morning. It's wonderful.
Right.
It's a holiday morning. No. We all know that's not true.
Right.
Americans celebrate. Yeah. Are all Americans Christians? But some celebrate Hanukkah.
Right.
But the vast majority of retail sales are done to celebrate Christmas.
Right.
Right. So why not acknowledge that? That's
right.
why try to eradicate the use of that word?
And when we would do interviews, this goes to answer the people who may be saying, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. No, when we would do interviews on this subject, what we would say is we would start talking about the Christian foundations of our country.
Right.
And we would have that discussion
Right.
as a result of being on a program to talk about the war on Christmas. So it was an opportunity for us to make a broader point.
So go to resources.afa.net, order your buttons, resources.afa.net, resources.afa.net.
By the way, I think they can get either the red or the green. I'm looking at both. The red one says, Jesus, he came for you. Merry Christmas. The green one says, Jesus, our living hope. Merry Christmas. So these are very high quality buttons. And
we tried to get some low quality, but we couldn't. Right? We had to go with high quality.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing the green ones? Because when I resources.afa.net, I just get the red ones.
Well, I just searched. I searched when I got to resources.afa.net for Christmas buttons. And both
gotcha. You
came
put
up.
it in the search bar?
Yeah. So.
I gotcha. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, and Ed. All right, what do you got next, Fred?
You know, if you owe the government $1.4 million in taxes, that means you're making a lot of money, like millions. If you owe that much in taxes,
right,
you're bringing in millions and millions of dollars. Well, after several years now of investigating Hunter Biden, late last week, the feds entered 9 new charges against him in California, 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors for those back taxes. This goes back 2015, 16, 17 in that area. And in the indictments, we are given details as to where Hunter Biden has been spending that money. And we've kind of heard this before. And I'm just going to a big portion of it was adult entertainment. I'm just going to leave it at that. I think
we all know what you mean.
Yes. And we're talking well over $1 million, folks, for adult entertainment. And then on and on and on from there. What all this is pointing to is the question, and we had the IRS whistleblowers testify this year before Congress, been investigating Hunter Biden for a long time, and also the details coming out as to he worked for Burisma, Ukrainian. How much
energy company?
What was it? $80,000
a month. I think.
A month,
right?
$80,000 a month for a guy who knew nothing about energy,
right?
And of course, it all ties in with the bigger investigation as to was Hunter Biden using the influence of his dad, who was vice president during the Barack Obama years, and we all know that Joe Biden's area of expertise, quotation marks, was in dealing with foreign governments. And the Republicans believe, and there's soon going to be an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden because of the alleged influence of him using his position as vice president to help his son. His son then got money. We're talking money from China interest. We're talking money Ukraine and other foreign governments. And then the allegation is, and there appears to be mounting proof of this, although Joe Biden, even as last week, called it all lies, that he got kickbacks from his son's businesses because his dad kind of facilitated him getting all these jobs and these contracts with these foreign governments. So now the latest is these 9 new charges against Hunter Biden. And over the next several months in 2024, leading up to the election, you're going to have the possibility of the start of a trial, et cetera, et cetera. And as I say, the House, Republicans in the House, are getting ever closer to having a vote on an impeachment inquiry. It's not an impeachment per se. It's an impeachment inquiry vote.
Yeah, according to the Constitution, the House has the responsibility of filing charges of impeachment against a sitting president. Those are like indictments.
Yes.
If you're thinking in court, the Senate would try the case and make the decision. So an impeachment inquiry is simply the House sifting through the evidence to see if there is enough evidence there to have formal impeachment charges. So this, in the case of Hunter Biden, these are 3 felony tax offenses, 6 misdemeanor tax offenses, and still open, if I'm not mistaken, would be charges related to the possession of a gun, a firearm, right?
Lying on the application.
Yeah, lying on the application.
He's going to prison.
You think he is?
Yeah. He is.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to prison. Tax evasion. They don't. You usually get nailed on that.
Yeah.
And you go to prison. I mean, he's got how many counts against him?
Well, he's got 9 total. It's 3 felony, 6 misdemeanor tax offenses.
That's my prediction. I could be wrong, but I think that.
I think he could have
on the gun charge too.
On the gun
charge, he'll get prison time because that's possession of a firearm and you're a felony. And he lied on allegedly he lied on the application.
Yes, about whether he was taking any drugs.
Yeah. Right.
And he had videos of himself, again, allegedly.
Right.
We'll see what his defense is, but videos of himself, allegedly using illegal drugs, controlled substances, but lying on the federal form for purchasing the gun.
Yeah. So
let that be a lesson to everybody. Hunter Biden is public now. I mean, I'm not telling you anything everybody doesn't know. His life's been an absolute mess, a disaster. And the chickens are coming home to roost, so to speak.
Right.
Kind of reminds me of the story in the Bible about the prodigal son just wallowing with the pigs.
Right.
Except Hunter Biden kept on wallowing.
Yeah.
With the pigs. Now, maybe he's gotten clean and sober, so to speak. Maybe he has. Hopefully he has. I mean, best thing for him is to surrender his life to the Lord.
Right.
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 Amen. But, maybe he's clean now, not using drugs, but the years of this kind of salacious living and behavior is catching up with him.
Right.
In a big way. All right. You're listening to Today's Issues. We got about a minute to go here before the break.
Everybody knows Joe Biden's been doing very poorly in the polls, like across the board. Well, the Biden campaign people, guess who they're calling in to help out? Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton to help out Joe Biden?
To help out Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton to the rescue. Now, Charlie Hurt, he's one of these Fox commentators, was asked about this morning, cut number 1.
You are in deep, deep trouble if you are picking up the bat phone and calling Hillary Clinton to come help you out. And I think it's sort of interesting that their thinking is that he needs help among women voters. If you need help among women voters and you're a Democrat and you're running against Donald Trump, you should just quit. Because
so true.
It's over.
There's so much in that.
First of all, that was a great line about picking up the bat phone. And listen, let me just tell you something else. I've heard Hillary Clinton's name tossed around as a potential option if Joe Biden is not able to run for one reason or another. And she comes in to help you. I hope he's not sitting in a wheelchair with a long staircase because you may just have an oops moment to take you out of the way. All right, that was pretty dark, folks, even for me.
Okay, we will return in 5 minutes with more of Today's Issues. Steve Paisley-Jordahl will be with us. We're going to sit down, and we're already sitting down, but we're going to interview Steve and his father, who had a remarkable life in foreign missions. And we're going to, and as a pastor, we're going to talk to him coming up.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
All God asks of you is faithfulness. Headlines in USA Today, did you see it this morning? All the odds against us. Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit AFA.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The war between Israel and Hamas rages on as IDF forces are intensifying their search for Hamas leaders. All this as the terrorist group is threatening to kill the remaining hostages held in Gaza. Trey Yingst has the latest from southern Israel.
Over the weekend, Israeli forces pushed deeper into the Gaza Strip, this time targeting the Jabalia neighborhood in the northern part of Gaza. The Nahal Infantry Brigade's 931st Battalion say Hamas fighters had prepared for an ambush, but they were thwarted. Since the ground operation began, 104 Israeli soldiers have been killed, and while the activity remains high on the southern front, as does it on the northern front, the border with Lebanon, where Israel's Chief of Staff Herzl Halevi visited troops over the weekend, Israel has reportedly set a deadline for attempts to reach a diplomatic solution with Hezbollah. At this point, though, Israeli officials say they think the chances of a diplomatic solution are low.
Hunter Biden has been indicted on 9 tax charges in California and is accused of evading more than $1 million in taxes between 2016 and 2020. David Spunt has more.
Hunter Biden and his legal team have 2 federal court fights ahead of them. But in this recent tax case out of California, the government claims between 2016 and October 15th, 2020, the defendant, meaning Hunter Biden, spent this money on drugs, escorts and girlfriends, luxury hotels and rental properties, exotic cars, clothing, and other items of a personal nature. In short, everything but his taxes. Now, the charges over his taxes, not really a surprise. Special counsel David Weiss said in a court document back in August that he would likely charge Hunter for tax crimes in California or Washington, D.C. After that plea deal fell through, he chose California. That's where Hunter Biden has called home since 2018.
Former President Trump is backing out of testifying in his own defense during his New York civil fraud trial. Eric Shawn explains why.
He was supposed to be the final witness in his defense, but the former president says his lawyers have done such a good job, he doesn't need to testify again. The ongoing civil trial will determine damages after Judge Arthur Engoron ruled the Trump Organization inflated the value of its assets. The judge has already found Trump liable for fraud, but Trump's defense team says that billions of dollars in values it assigned his properties were accurate. Some defense witnesses have denied the former president committed fraud, but one did say the values the company claimed were, quote, not proper or reasonable. Another said Deutsche Bank cut Trump's valuations by half and still provided him loans.
Harvard's governing body will hold a meeting today as calls grow for University President Claudine Gay to resign. This comes following a congressional hearing last week that saw Gay and other Ivy League presidents refuse to condemn anti-Jewish hate and violence on their campuses. Florida Republican Representative Kat Cammack says she wants to see all of those presidents resign.
It's absolutely unacceptable, absolutely shameful that they couldn't unequivocally state, yes, it violates their student code of conduct, that it is unacceptable to be calling for genocide on campus.
A new textbook on transgenderism for psychiatrists comes with a caveat that it could potentially harm millions of children in the future. Bob Kellogg explains why.
The Epoch Times reports the book was written by 56 authors, 50 of whom are in the transgender community. Pediatrician Michelle Cretella of Advocates Protecting Children cautions this book is bulging with unscientific information.
When you read the textbook itself, this isn't about science. It's not about human flourishing. It's about a revolution. And it is quite frightening. A revolution being spearheaded by disordered people.
One frightening aspect, Dr. Cretella says the textbook claims evidence on the cardiovascular risk associated with cross-sex hormones is mixed.
There are multiple studies which demonstrate that testosterone given to females and estrogen given to males raises the risk 4 to 5-fold for heart attacks and stroke. The World Health Organization recognizes that estrogen is a class 1 cancer-causing agent as well.
The book, Gender Affirming Psychiatric Care, was printed by the American Psychiatric Association.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
In Psalm 122, David urges us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. All of Israel needs our prayers now. As Hamas attacks day after day, would you and your family join with your AFA family to pray for all those who have lost loved ones and who still face incredible danger at the hands of terrorists who hate God and His people? Tim Wildman has a personal message for you with suggestions on how you can pray and stay informed. Please take time to read it today at afa.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues. That's the name of this show on the American Family Radio Network. 24 and a half more minutes of program left here on this show, but we hope you listen to AFR throughout the day. I'm Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano, and Steve Paisley-Jordahl joins us now. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hey, we have a very special guest you brought in studio.
We do. I figured if you're going to have one of your relatives on,
yeah,
because it's going to be joining us, I'm going to bring one of mine.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
Today is my dad, Richard Jordahl's 90th birthday. Dick Jordahl.
Yeah.
90 years old. And so we brought him in, and we're going to talk to him. You wanted to talk to him.
I
You got
did.
a question for him, but I want to start, if you don't mind, by asking him, can you explain to everybody why you like me better than my sister?
That isn't even worth commenting on. I've spent 90 years trying to answer questions like that. I still haven't succeeded.
And your sister, Steve's named Carol.
Her name is Carol, yeah.
Is she listening?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Where does she live? Send her the interview.
I know,
Where does she
right?
live?
She's in Nashville. Dad actually lives with in an apartment attached to her house.
How far were you from the tornado?
We're south.
Okay,
the
you're south.
tornado was north.
Got to Franklin
we were-
area, that
yeah.
kind of area. Okay.
We were.
Well, listen. Thanks for joining us. So 90 years old.
That's right.
So that would. So you were born in what year?
1933, December 11th.
So you have memories of World War II then?
Yes,
obviously.
I certainly do.
Where were you living then?
I was living in a little town in eastern Oregon, LeGrand, Oregon, and remember vividly growing up at that time, rationing. I wore out shoes, and my mom had to go before a board to get permission to buy me another pair of shoes. Sugar you couldn't get. It was a fascinating time, and as a kid, I didn't know anything but war news. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, what's going to happen when the war is over? What are they going to put in newspapers?
Right.
I didn't know.
Well, because they had the newsreels, too, would play if you went to the movie theater.
Yeah.
Because there was no nightly news. There was no television.
No, totally different.
Right.
But it was a real threat. You really believed you were going to be taken over. And it was scary.
So you were living in a small town in eastern Oregon?
Right.
One of the towns that wants to be Idaho now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really remote.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, especially at that time. That's so. What was your when you grew up, and when did you become a pastor?
Well, I felt God talking to me about it when I was a sophomore in high school, and make a long story short, God touched me, moved me, and I prepared for the ministry and started really in 1956 was when I really started in the ministry. And then in 1960, I went to Twin Lakes Church in Santa Cruz, California, and was there for 41 years with a parenthesis of 7 years when we were in Madagascar.
So 1960, you went to what was the name of the church?
Twin Lakes Church.
Where's that?
Santa Cruz, Aptos, California, right next to Santa Cruz.
Yep.
You remember that, Steve?
Oh yeah, I grew up in that church, and that's where when we came back from the mission field, that's where I went to church during high school and college, and until we moved until every time I was in California until just like a couple years ago. So yeah, very familiar with the church. Love that church. Beautiful church.
So tell me the time you're pastoring a church, this Twin Lakes church, and then
I was an associate pastor.
Associate.
And
that's when everything gets dumped in your lap, right?
Pardon?
That's when the senior pastor dumps everything in your lap.
Right.
Listen, we had the nicest church in the world. People were tremendous to us. And they gave us trust. And I would say the median tenure of people on our staff at Twin Lakes now is 30 years.
Talking to Dick Jordahl, who's in studio with us. He's the father of Steve Jordahl. Dick lives in the Nashville area. He's down visiting with Steve, and we asked him to come in studio because he's celebrating 90 years on this planet. And I wanted to ask you about the time. So you're in Northern California serving the church.
Right.
What year was it, and how did it come about that you decided God wanted you to go to Madagascar?
Well, good question. We came to Santa Cruz in 1960, and I was working in education in the church, just pretty much do it. You answered the question earlier, did everything.
Right.
But we were challenging young people to consider going to the mission field, and so we got convicted that maybe we needed to see if God wanted us there. So we made application with what was the mission agency at the time, Conservative Baptist Foreign Missionary Society. And we got convicted because we'd been living on our street for 7 years and we hadn't seen anybody come to know the Lord. And here we were traveling 12,000 miles to talk to other people about Jesus, and it hadn't happened on our block. Right. So one night we just prayed. We said, God, do anything you want to do to see us bring our neighbors to come to know Christ. We prayed that prayer one night.
Be careful what you pray for, right?
What?
Be careful what you pray for.
Well, yeah. From our standpoint, it was a good thing, but from God's standpoint, it was right. The next day, my Carol, the one I love more than him, not really.
Yeah, I know.
Ran out of my arms into the middle of the street and was hit and knocked into a coma and lying in the street.
By a car.
Just by a car. We didn't know whether she's going to
what
die
age
right
was she?
there.
What age?
She's 4. And I remembered what we prayed. And the entire neighborhood came out of their house. And there I was. And so the Lord gave me the ability to get down on my knees, and we just committed her to the Lord before all of those people. And God was good, obviously, because she recovered, but it was tough. But our neighbors across the street came to know Christ through that process.
Wow.
So that's the beginning. And then the Lord sent us to Madagascar, which was a tremendously wonderful experience.
Okay, so what age were you, Steve, when y'all went?
Well, we left in. I was 8 when we left. 68. I was 8 years old.
What I want to know is why Madagascar? I mean, were you given 2 or 3 choices where your family could go on the foreign mission field, and you closed your eyes and went around the globe and
right.
I mean, how did it pin something down? How'd that work?
Well, we were initially planning on going to France.
Okay.
But we received an invitation from a man that was wanting to open up a new field in Madagascar. And there was an association of churches there, 12 small churches, and they wanted some people to come and help them establish a theological education by extension. It's where you take the training to the pastors because your leaders are the adults that can't afford to go to school, but they're the ones. So our job was to take the training to them. So that's what we went. That's they requested, would you be willing to come? And so we said, sure. We prayed about it and felt like maybe our gifts would fit that area. So that's what we did.
So those
we went.
Madagascar, that's an island off Africa.
That's right.
So are they
world's third largest island?
Fourth.
Fourth?
Yeah.
Largest island.
Oh, there you go.
One of them shrunk.
He's always correcting.
Yeah, geographically.
The disgusting thing is
It was
he's
Guam,
always
and
right.
Guam, and it tipped over when we had too many troops on there.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Madagascar took this place.
Right.
So how many years in Madagascar then?
We were 7 years. We were planning on spending the rest of our life, but God closed the door and sent us back to the church where we came from.
7 years, one in France and some
Oh yeah,
time in Switzerland.
we were
and then
in France.
learning language. Yeah,
we were in France to learn French because everybody's bilingual in Madagascar. And then,
What are their languages?
Malagasy is a universal language on the island, and so you're looking at one of the world's worst language learners. If there was a mistake to be made in learning language, I did it.
Okay.
So
tell us about your ministry there, though. I mean, I want to know how many how did you get people there? I'm guessing these folks are a lot of the Africans are superstitious. They're pagan religions. They're that kind of thing, idol worshiping, and that's at least that's the image.
They're ancestor worship.
Ancestor worship.
One of the things they do is they spend more money on their tombs and their where they place their dead than where they live, because as much as they can afford it, they will go down and they will wrap the bodies in linen, and then every so once in a while they'll go back and they'll bring the bodies back up out of the grave, rewrap them, and carry them around the community and have a celebration and a parade, and then rewrap them and put them back. But really, ancestor worship is.
So what kind of success did you have there?
Well,
success is a relative word here. I understand that. Yeah, I understand. I mean, how were you able to penetrate?
What my job was, I prepared and went down to a teaching point where I taught theology and Bible in the Malagasy language to these pastors and a lot of church members also who wanted to learn. And the interesting thing was I was able to have great conversations. We had discussions, Socratic method, all that sort of stuff. And so I felt pretty good about my language. And then I would come home and a woman would knock on the door selling brushes, and I didn't know the first word about brush. So the basic issue is this: God gave me the ability to do something I probably shouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Yeah. How many? Tell them about how many churches were in the association?
Oh, there were 12 churches, and these churches invited us to come. And there were 5 families that showed up. And that was really overwhelming to this small little association of churches. One couple stayed for 30 years.
A missionary couple.
That came with us. We were opening that field. This couple stayed and ran home small Bible studies, and they've probably established around 200 to 300 churches now. That one couple.
Wow.
And the association has grown from that small group to thousands of people, and the Lord is still using that ministry, which is exciting to me to think that the Lord would even give me even a small chance of just having a small part of that.
Amen. Well, listen, what a wonderful career you've had as far as serving God, both here in the U.S. and in Madagascar, and 90 years young, huh?
I guess.
I would like to just say before we let you go, I see on the bio that we were handed that you and your wife Marilyn had been married for 64 years till her passing. 66. Okay.
Yeah.
Until her passing in 2022. So I want to say that you and Miss Marilyn did a great job raising Steve.
Thank you.
I've never met Carol. I'm sure she is superior to Steve.
In
but
many ways.
You did a great job with Steve. He loves the Lord, and he's very diligent about his job. We're blessed to have him here. So,
Did he get his love for Paisley from you?
No, I just check for me. That's
Oh, you're a check guy. Checkerboard.
Our kids have never caused us one moment of real grief. Problems
that he knows about.
They were able to cover it well.
Yes, that's what you learn. Someone told me a long time ago that your job is to find out what your teenagers are doing. Your teenager's job is to hide it from you. So that's the back and forth that goes when kids grow up.
One quick story: when I was in college, I had some friends from. I went to Biola. I had some friends up for Thanksgiving who lived farther away than I did, so they all came to my house, and we decided to go up to San Francisco for the night or for the evening to go. And we went. There was a nice restaurant up at the top of the Mark Hopkins Hotel that rotated. You could see the whole city. And we went there. We thought we were very, sophisticated, and so we decided to have virgin daiquiris, which are daiquiris without alcohol, just the ice and everything, because we didn't drink and everything. So we had our good night, and then we came home. And we came home, and how'd your night go? Dad asked. I said, fine. We went to the top of the Mark. We had virgin daiquiris, and it was great. Okay, good night. So 2 days later, after Dad pulls me aside and says, I have not been able to sleep. He said, I got to tell you, if you want to go into the ministry, you got to learn you can't drink.
We had interns at the church.
Yeah, I was an intern at the church. I was preparing to go into ministry myself, which I did for several years. He said, you can't drink. I said, what are you talking about? He says, well, you went up to the top of the Mark Hopkins and you said you had daiquiris. I said, we had virgin daiquiris. He says, what's that mean?
Okay, so I'm naive.
Well, what was the first president you remember?
Roosevelt.
FDR.
Yeah.
Not the other one.
Teddy.
Not Teddy.
If you remember Teddy, I want to know what
vitamins
vitamins you're taking.
Nope.
Oh, man. But anyway, well, thank you, Mr. Jordahl.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's been an honor.
Well,
and I admire what you do. It's tremendous.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Praise the Lord. Thank you, sir.
Dick Jordahl in studio with us, Steve's dad. He's down from Nashville visiting, and he's 90 years old, and just sharing some of the memories he's had of in the ministry, both here and on the foreign mission field. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim Wildman with Ed Battagliano and Steve Jordahl. All right, Steve, as far as news, what do you have first?
Well, we have just been talking to a man who's got a remarkable life and is fairly humble about it. I want to talk about a man who's had a fairly remarkable life and is anything but. Donald Trump has been talking, and he was doing a speech fundraiser for his campaign, and never one to shy away from tooting his own horn. He decided to tout and talk about his bravery. What a brave man he was. And I want you to hear what he said. Listen to cut 10.
But I went onto that stage just a few days later, and a general who's a fantastic general actually said to me, sir, I've been on the battlefield. Men have gone down on my left and on my right. I stood on hills where soldiers were killed. But I believe the bravest thing I've ever seen was the night you went onto that stage with Hillary Clinton after what happened. And then that woman asked you the first question about it. And I said, locker room talk. It's locker room talk. Locker room talk.
That was a Saturday night. Trump was speaking at a New York gala for Young Republicans. I think it was a local chapter of Young Republicans. What he was talking about there, well,
it's hard to say.
He was bragging about his younger days and his exploits with women.
Well, it was things that we can't talk about. That he was talking about that he had said. He was bragging that he had overcome obstacles in the campaign against Hillary Clinton, one of which was that videotape of him saying things you could do to women. That's all I'm going to say.
Right.
And then he goes on to say that a general told him taking the debate stage was the bravest thing he ever saw, even braver than men losing their lives in battle. And I just thought that seems a little bit over the top. even for Trump. Huh?
Yeah.
Should you be talking like that?
First of all, I don't. Even if a general did say that, I'm not saying he's lying. I'm saying, but even if a general does say that to you, my personal opinion is you don't ever compare yourself, no matter how brave you are, to men who have given their lives. That's why
I agree.
That's why
inappropriate.
I have deference to those who have actually served. When we're talking about, I have nephews. I have a brother-in-law. I have two brother-in-laws who have served in the military, and two that currently serve. And I always show deference to them when talking about military matters. When we have big family get-togethers, these are people who have put it on the line, and I'm not going to compare myself to them. That's my take on it.
Yeah,
I don't think he should have done that. Find some other way to talk about how brave you are. I killed a snake once. It scared my wife.
Yeah,
killed it.
Well, why don't you let somebody else talk about how brave you are
Yeah.
instead of you saying I'm.
Oh,
Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
Next story, Steve.
All right. You guys were talking last hour about the companies that had previously not wanted to mention Christmas, and then one of the companies you said did. Whoever got to that company needs to go out to California, because California just had its Christmas tree lighting. But I want you to hear how much Gavin Newsom decided that he wanted to not mention Christmas. You're going to hear from first partner, Gavin Newsom's wife. Her name is Jennifer Siebel Newsom. And then you're going to hear from Gavin Newsom. And then you're going to hear from our friend Gary Bauer. And then you're going to hear from Ronald Reagan. And then you're going to hear from Gary Bauer again. So this will all make sense. But I want to listen and note how much effort it takes him not to mention Christmas. Cut 11. No, cut 5.
Season's greetings and happy holidays, California. Welcome to the lighting of the California State Capitol tree.
As we begin this evening, I'd like to read a land acknowledgement. We recognize the treatment through colonialism and attempted genocide of our forebears. It was their persistence, tenacity, and resilience that the descendants of those first people that inhabited this land are still here today. Welcome.
The holidays remind all of us to dedicate our thoughts to others, that mercy and compassion are enduring virtues, and that it is more blessed to give than to receive.
They were idiots. As I watched it, I found myself Googling Ronald Reagan, Christmas, December 1981.
Some celebrate Christmas as the birthday of a great and good philosopher and teacher. Others of us believe in the divinity of the child born in Bethlehem, that he was and is the promised Prince of Peace.
A Gavin administration, if God forbid we ever end up with it, may possibly make us yearn for the Biden years. Biden's an old-style Democrat that has got a bunch of leftists around him, but Gavin Newsom is the real thing.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the shaman that they brought on, the Indian chief that was going to read the land acknowledgement, which is kind of very woke.
Who was it that said it is more blessed to give than
that
to receive?
That was Gavin Newsom.
That was Gavin Newsom,
quoting the Bible,
quoting Jesus.
I don't think he knew that, or he wouldn't have done it. But
did he attribute? Yeah, he didn't attribute.
No, it's a colloquial saying. You know, everybody knows it's better to give than to receive. It's just, yeah.
Well, listen, it's painful. It's painful to listen to these quote-unquote progressives talk all around what they really want to say, which is what Gavin Newsom and first partner, that's painful to say too.
Right.
What he really wants to say is, we hate God, we hate Christianity, we know California has a lot of Christians, so we don't want to upset them, but I'm not going to mention it. This is straight out of Romans 1, a refusal to give honor and glory to God. And it is idolatry, and that's what the book of Romans says.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. My thanks to Ed and Fred and Mr. Dick Jordahl.
Jerry Lawson,
and Brent Creeley, our producer.
He's okay, too.
Have a great rest of your afternoon, folks. Keep listening to American Family Radio. You know, one of the most patriotic scenes you can experience in America is going to the Arlington National Cemetery and then attending the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That's just one of the stops we'll make on our Spiritual Heritage Tour in June and September of 2024. If you want to go to DC and you want it all organized, you just want to show up and have everything taken care of for you, then we're the tour for you. We're also going to Mount